Hey everyone, and welcome to the Listen We Personally podcast. Y'all, I have some grievances that I need to get off my chest
No.
before we start this podcast. Now, for those of y'all who do not know, I am currently living on my own and I don't have a vehicle. So I have to heavily rely on things like Uber, Lyft, Instacart, and all of that, right? And I feel like I keep getting bamboozled by these delivery people, and I try to give grace because I know people are tired and they're overworked and they're underpaid. But today I'm like, I don't know if it's all this Mercury and Venus and whatever planets are in Mercury right now, the stars and the
And the
moons,
renegades and all the like.
whatever it is. I don't know what is going on. But I had another incident today with my Instacart. So I was trying to figure out dinner, and I'm like, you know what? I could go for some Publix chicken.
What you with the damn chicken friend?
It's
It's
it's good. So I'm like, okay. And then the last time I ordered Publix chicken, it has sold out. So I'm like, okay, let me try to get on this early. So I made me a little Publix order, and I was like, well, I don't want to just order chicken. So I'm like, let me look in the fridge, see what I'm low on, and then add some other stuff to my cart. So I typically make a lot of my own like homemade pizzas. So I will get like the pizza crust and all the different ingredients from Publix. So I chose a specific brand of crust. And when it got time for the shopper start shopping, the crust that I selected was not in stock. And there's a specific brand that I don't really like to get because one, their crust is really, really small. But two, I'm just not a fan of like how it tastes. And so my shopper tried to replace the crust that I got with the crust that I did not want. And so you know how like on Instacart, like it'll send you a notification saying like, hey, this person wants to replace it with this item, approve or don't approve, right? Literally, I saw the notification pop up on my phone like as soon as it happened. I click into the app, I start like going to like say no, like refund me. Then it just like disappears. And I'm like, well, what happened? Shopper has finished checking out and you can't make any more adjustments to your order. Now, here's
Oh,
the
I
thing.
croaked. Oh, I croaked. Mm.
This is not the first time, second time, third time this has happened where it's almost like, and it's always like the last item too, where it's like there's an item out of stock and they'll either refund it or they'll pick a replacement and they won't even give you enough time to approve and say like, hey, it's okay. It's like they'll do it, they'll immediately check out so you can't make any changes. And I'm just like, fam. So now I'm already heated because I'm like, bro, if he show up, because also for some reason it got taken off of my like shopping list too. So I'm like, okay, maybe because I didn't approve it, maybe it just got taken off entirely. I'm not entirely sure. But now I'm already like, okay, now I'm about to get this crust that I don't want. Now, I put very, very clear instructions on how to deliver things to my apartment. And Ayana has also been witness to how I give these folks clear instructions on what to do
We
and
need a
how to.
screenshot of something.
Yeah, I might put a screenshot up on screen, or I don't know. That might be a safety risk. I
Very good
might
point.
not do that, but I put very specific instructions on how to get in this building, and I also have it set to leave at my door. Right, this man gets to the apartment, doesn't message me because for context, the instructions are like, message me when you get here and then I'll let you in. So not only did he not message me that he was here, this man left my groceries outside in the rain. Yeah, in the rain. Mm-hmm. In the rain. And so then he sends me a picture saying, "Hey, I left your groceries outside by this door." And I'm like, "That's not what the instructions. That's not what the instructions said to do."
And the drizzle outside,
In
and
the
the
drizzle drizzle
the
outside.
the elements.
So I'm
Oh,
like, "Well, now I gotta get up and put some clothes on and go downstairs and get my belongings." And I'm like, I swear, literally, bro, I was so heated. I'm like, if I go down these stairs and get these bag of groceries from outside, and that pizza crust is in that bag, I am going to lower his tip. Because not only did you get a replacement that I did not approve of, that I probably got charged for, but you
yep.
left my groceries outside when I specifically said to let me know when you're here so you can bring them up to my apartment. The crust was in the bag.
I'm sorry. Oh, friend.
Fam, I was over it. Because here's the thing again, I try to give grace. Like there have been times where I've had Instacart shoppers say like, "Hey, I have a bad back," or "Hey, my knee isn't doing so well. Like, are you able to come down and get the groceries?" And I'm like, "Yes, of course. Like, I don't have a problem making adjustments if you're not able." But the fact that he just completely disregarded one, the item that I wanted, but two, the clear instructions to message me at the very least. Like I literally have it in there that you need to message me when you arrive to the building, and he didn't even do that. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's the retrograde or what's happening, but yeah, that's how my evening has been going. How has your evening gone?
I'm not gonna hold you. Nowhere near like that. No, nowhere near like that, y'all. I've been having a much better day. Can confirm no groceries were outside and nobody rain. My Uber driver brought me my smoothie to the door. You know, we live in the high life, I suppose. Albeit y'all might hear, I apologize in advance. Y'all might hear my mom and my sister in the background. So lock in because she might be getting in trouble right now as we speak. So we're just gonna ride this out a little bit. But otherwise, I'm doing good. I got the next few days off. Gotta help my cousin get settled into another realm of getting people settled into a new spot to live in. I think that's just my chronicles for the past few months. Love you, friend.
You know,
I want a break though. My back hurts. my knees have popped right up since the boxes. All right, I need a break.
yeah, no, that in itself needs to be a podcast episode. Like I know I made a YouTube video about it, but I think it would be funny if like we both were to talk about just that whole experience from touring the apartments, getting the apartment together, because it was a whole thing. But anyway, okay, we're gonna get into today's episode. So the first topic that I wanted to talk about was this whole Pretty Little Thing rebrand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everyone's been talking about it. I've even spoken about it, or I'm about to speak about it on my channel.
I have on mine, yeah.
And it's interesting because I've seen a lot of takes and I've seen both positive and negative opinions on this whole rebrand. I've seen people say that, like, hey, this wasn't necessary. You're abandoning your core demographic here. Like, what are you doing? No one asked for this. It's giving boring and stale.
Mm-hmm.
I saw one TikTok that was like, it's giving your not marketing, your creative director is Hillary Clinton. Like I've just
That's nasty word. Wow. Okay. Wow.
I've seen it all. But then I've also seen people say like, "Hey, this is great. I've been looking for more pieces like this that are timeless and are modest and will fully cover up my body." And so I wanted to get your first initial thoughts when you saw this rebrand. Were you happy? Were you not happy? What were your thoughts?
So, okay, y'all, I remember the night when that rebrand hit because I screenshotted that stuff and I was like, Brie girl, have you seen what Pretty Little Thing done did to their Instagram, their app, their socials? They scrubbed it clean. And they now give the clean girl aesthetic, the old money aesthetic, right? And when I first saw it, you know, I think my first feeling was disappointment. I think there's a good and bad side to what's happening here, and we can definitely talk about the pluses and the minuses in a second. But my initial first feeling was disappointment because it felt like we were starting to see some erasure of expression. And I didn't like that feeling. I think to a lot of people's first thoughts, I thought it looked dull, just visually speaking, in terms of the color palette. It was very dull. I was missing a lot of the colors that I'm used to seeing with Pretty Little Thing, especially since it's spring. It's now summer. I'm expecting pastels. I'm expecting pops of color. It gave brown, shades of brown, and I'm ashamed as a brown girl, but also where the color at? You know what I mean? Um, but first, before we get into all of that, first I want to hear also your thoughts, along with maybe we can go with we'll start with the good and then we'll go with the bad.
Okay. So this whole rebrand took me by surprise. I was not expecting it. I literally like I know they like you said like they wiped their Instagram and stuff clean. I had no clue this was even happening
Mm-hmm.
until like you had sent it to me. And I don't know, it's cuz I didn't shop Pretty Little Thing all that much. It's funny cuz I only just started shopping there because they're one of the few brands that offer like some nice petite
Mm-hmm.
pants, and in my chronicles of trying to find pants for short people, Pretty Little Thing had a pretty decent collection, especially with cargo pants. And so, when I saw that they rebranded, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I wasn't too excited about it because it's just not the type of clothes that I like. Like, I'm someone that likes, I like a graphic tee, I like some fun patterns, and this type of clothing just doesn't speak to me. So it almost felt like, dang, well now I have like one less option to shop at. And even getting into some of the like pros and cons, right? Like I know we've both spoken about how it's hard to find clothes nowadays that do fully cover up your body.
That was gonna be my first pro. Yeah, you don't see the rips, the back's not out. Like it's always something. The shoulder, the
Yes.
the chest, something has to be visible instead of just a normal T-shirt.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've seen people compare Pretty Little Thing to Fashion Nova a lot and saying that Pretty Little Thing is trying to get away from
Hmm.
that idea of revealing clothes. And I've seen people throw around BBL fashion,
But seriously though,
and I do get that to a certain extent of like, okay, they're trying to separate themselves and elevate the brand, so to speak. But from what I've been seeing, it doesn't seem as though their quality of clothes has really changed much. It's just more so
hmm
what the pieces look like, and with that has also came higher prices. And
uh-huh.
I think that's the thing that I'm the most upset about. It's one thing if you want to offer something different, but when you are like nearly doubling your prices, but your clothes are still like 90% polyester, it's like, okay,
hmm
what are we really doing here? Because I mean, I'll say for me, like even though I don't really wear those type of clothes, there's a few pieces on there that are cute. And I think it's interesting too because people were saying that like it's hard to find modest clothes at a price point that is
That was
friendly and
gonna
that
be
is
another point I was gonna
accessible
say. Yeah.
to most people. And so they're almost pricing out their core demographic as well. And so I'm curious if I wonder how this is gonna do for them. Like, is this gonna lead to? Because I can't imagine that they're expecting their original demographic to still be interested in these clothes. I think they are reaching out to an entirely new audience with these pieces, and I know people have said too that modest fashion in general is having a resurgence, and Pretty Little Thing is trying to jump on that trend. And so I also wanted to get your thoughts on that too, like the thought that modest fashion is becoming trendy now.
I'll definitely jump back a little bit because you hit on some points I was going to say. um, so first, the thought of um, I'll try to start forward and work backwards. There was a bunch of thoughts that you said. So fashion is comparison to Fashion Nova. It was definitely very interesting that the era, quote unquote, that we're leaving in fashion is now being called BBL fashion. Because now when you, as funny as it sounds, you now step back and say, wait, but the era of beauty in fashion as a whole, the era of presentation that we're leaving is people are moving away from injections. They're moving away from top surgery. They're moving away from getting BBLs. They're moving away from heavy levels of makeup and revealing clothing. They're moving to a simpler, more natural as appeal that they're seeing as beauty now. Um, I even find it more interesting that I was on Fashion Nova yesterday, and some of their pieces, their latest capsule collections within spring, and I believe their resort wear also is looking a little bit more covered. Now, is it like Pretty Little Thing covered? No, you can still see tell it's Fashion Nova. It has some a little something, but it's definitely much more covered than what I grew up knowing with Fashion Nova. And it's very interesting to your current question that modesty is now a trend. I think modesty is a trend now because a lot of the influencers that we've seen for a very long time are starting to move away from their content. And they've either started making minimalist content, they've started making like trad wife s content where they're baking from home, they're taking care of kids, or they're starting to make Christian content. And that does heavily influence what people wear next. You know what I mean? Like we start seeing our favorite influencers start to cover up, start to give this timeless, effortless type of look. We're going to want to replicate that. So now you're seeing all of these fast fashion brands, especially because they're the first ones to hop on everything because they can do it fast. Or you're seeing your larger retailers start to center modesty, which now then will frankly start influencing our dollars next. You know, our whatever modesty I think in due time will become affordable, because that's just what's going to be in trend. I do find it though a little interesting, you know, the modesty is trending. Um, one, because I view it as some type of erasure as well. I think modesty isn't solely about coverage. Modesty is also the elimination of expression. It's the elimination of color, of pattern, of texture, of choosing to go back to minimalism in a simplistic type of viewpoint. It's taking away the jewelry pieces, the statement pieces for the very small dainty pieces, the very small earrings, the very small necklaces. It's taking away the hats. It's taking away anything that makes your look unique, including your makeup. You're getting your no makeup, your skincare focus, right? We have plenty of experience with that, right? It's shifting away from showing it. I think from Pretty Little Thing, we're seeing exactly how the industry is choosing to go about modesty because modesty doesn't need to be boring, but the industry is making modesty very boring and very flat and one toned, and it's going to make everyone look the exact same. So, the last piece I'll mention on it, which was my second point, modesty itself isn't bad. Modesty being a choice is what makes it not bad. If people choose to cover up, that is a personal choice, whether it's religious, whether it's preference, that's a choice. But it being something that is pushed in a way, whether it's politically, whether it's by trend in any way, even we can talk about having less clothes as well, that being pushed in society, no one should be pushed to wear or dress in any type of way. It's an individual's choice on how they wish to present. And I do see in the long run, there's going to be some pushback against this. You know what I mean? I think there's going to have to be some type of pushback against not just modesty in terms of coverage, but in terms of us feeling like our world is becoming bleaker. Something is going to cause it to come back into color again, come back into expression again. Hopefully. Fingers crossed, right? Um, but yeah, I wonder how long this will trend. With the current administration we're in, it's not too surprising. It's just, I wonder what bigger implications it has. I think after you, I'll go about like thinking about how it could affect women's bodies as well, like the control on women's bodies. So go ahead.
Yeah, because I definitely want to touch on the politic aspect of it, because that was something that I saw too as I was scrolling through TikToks. Because I wasn't even like thinking about that, like about how
Mm-hmm.
just where we are again with the current administration and like what they've been doing, and if this is intentional from a larger scale, like if there are people like that are in that position of power kind of influencing these companies
Mm-hmm.
to do that. But it's interesting because I know you said earlier that when you think of modesty, or the way that these brands are going about modesty now, is like taking away the color, is taking away like the fun aspects of it. And there was this other TikTok that I saw too, which I might insert a clip, where they were talking about how like the girlies who actually dress modest, like they put a lot of effort into their looks. They're layering their looks. Like they're really going above and beyond.
PLT is not your modesty savior. Just because they swapped cutouts for beige basics doesn't mean they suddenly understand modest fashion. And if you've actually been dressing modestly for a while, you already know. Ask anyone who's been following modest fashion and they'll tell you it's not as simple as just covering up. Modest fashion takes effort, styling, and knowing how to make pieces work for you. It's not just grabbing a long dress off the rack and calling it a day. It's seeing a potentially revealing dress and knowing exactly how to alter it to fit your modesty boundaries. That can mean layering a turtleneck under a slip dress, wearing wide leg pants under a shorter dress, or adding a long sleeve top over a strappy piece to make it work. Modesty requires effort, styling, and intention. And let's be honest, PLT and brands like it aren't putting in that type of effort. What's worse is we're not even getting fun, unique pieces out of this rebrand. It's like their creativity is in a full blown recession. Boring beige sets, basic blazers, and somehow we have to pay more for it? Like, come on, don't let them finesse y'all. They're just dressing up the same fast fashion in quiet luxury packaging and acting like it's something new. It's still polyester, just in a muted tone with an inflation tax. You gotta let me know. Are you really falling for this or are you seeing through it? Because as for me, I'll happily let them show me the door, just like the numerous black models they quietly phased out.
And with this Pretty Little Thing rebrand, it just feels very lazy. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like they're not really putting a whole lot of effort into it. And it's tough because like I would say that I dress pretty modestly, but I I think there should always be an option for both. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, there's nothing wrong if you don't want to be modest. If you want to wear crop tops every single day, like there's nothing wrong with that. I think you should have the option. There should be enough option in fashion to express yourself however you want to express yourself. And it's frustrating when a lot of these brands, whether it be fast fashion or whatever big brands are out there. Sorry, I heard the
Word.
fire alarm, but it's not my unit this
Oh, I was
time.
gonna say no way.
I got really scared for a second. Um, but yeah, I just think that there should be more options out there. Cause like, imagine if Fashion Nova were to go fully like Pretty Little Thing, right? Then it's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
like give me something. And I think that's why I've now found myself starting to thrift more
Mm-hmm.
and starting to go like to TJ Maxx and Marshalls, because a lot of the like older pieces speak to me more than what's out there now. But I definitely want to touch a little bit on the political aspect of it because one, that's a little bit frightening
Mm-hmm.
that it can have that much impact on like what's even available for us to wear, because again, it's one thing for us to choose whether or not we want to dress more modestly, but when that's all that's being offered, on top of the fact that again, you're taking away color, you're taking away like fun patterns too, like you're literally taking the personality out of every, like it's literally in everything. It's in fashion. We're seeing a lot of brands too take the personality out of their logos.
Mm-hmm.
And the brand that I'll always go to is McDonald's. Like McDonald's went from this bright, colorful place to now most of the McDonald's locations are like gray and
Mm-hmm.
like these dark colors. And so, yeah, I'm curious to get your thoughts on like, do you think politics is influencing fashion?
I 1000% do. I am definitely a believer that fashion is political, whether it's within revolution or it's within influencing the masses. I think when I think about this administration, it's not simply like the person who's leading is causing it, it's the supporters who follow him. And many of the supporters who follow him are have hyper Christianic viewpoints that leans into modesty in a way that can be harmfully used against individuals to control what they wear, in my opinion. But these are also the same people who tend to have the money and who tend to have the say and who tend to have the sway, right? Who can influence what their stock does, so then they can influence what clothing they wear, what clothing they carry for people to have. You know what I mean? Um, it's definitely on that front is very nerve wracking because it's like it feels like we're kind of being herded like sheep.
Mm-hmm.
But on another front, as especially a woman, because I'm seeing a lot of this movement in women's fashion predominantly. I'm not really seeing it in men's, which I guess men's fashion doesn't really, it shifts, but not in the dynamic I would like to say as women's fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do view this as another way to control women's bodies. And I think fashion in general is a way that can both control but can also liberate women's bodies in terms of how they present themselves. But to your point on limiting choice, limiting clothing choices for a woman, this means you're limiting what she can wear, how she expresses herself, right? I think we often hear the type of conversations of, oh, well, it's because of what she was wearing. She was wearing that, so that's why she got,
Mm-hmm.
right? This she didn't look like that. She wasn't dressing like that, right? It feels like the type of fashion that we're seeing isn't quite like in response to these type of conversations, but I feel like it was after we've been hearing this for so long, this is what we're getting like, okay, well, if women shouldn't be dressing like that, this is what they should be dressing as instead. This
Mm-hmm.
is what they should be wearing instead. So then they nothing would happen to them, right? In reality, it's not women, it's other folks who cannot control themselves, right? Um, yeah. So I definitely think this is on the political front. Um, I think even deeper to some of the dystopian novels that we grew up reading, some of the dystopian movies where everyone was wearing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
the same colors. I think even Handmaid's Tale could be a good one, or other books where clothing choice is divided by class and aristocracy as well. So we might see it move to like the quote unquote common folk are wearing the duller colors, are wearing the much more, not simply just more modest, but you're wearing less color, you're very covered, you look very uniform, right? And you'll be able to tell who it might be in the working class versus if you're in the higher class, you can afford the more unique businesses. You can afford the expression. You can afford to pop out with color, with all these moments. For us, it's going to be things that are every so often. You know, if I walk out with a pink shirt now, being extreme, but if I walk out with a pink shirt now, you might be like, oh, Ayana spent her last check on a nice pink shirt. You know what I mean? So a tank top versus someone else who might be in full colors because they have that money like that, or they come from wealth, they come from all of that. So yeah, I think it's political.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I was thinking something similar, but not with color. I was thinking like, so like, especially like with again Pretty Little Thing like raising their prices. I wonder if it's gonna be a thing of like only people that make a lot of money are able to afford the modest clothing. So the people that wear those type of clothes are looked at as, higher in society versus the rest of us that are wearing the BBL clothes and we're like lesser than.
Oh, very good point. Very, very, because it ties into like this resurgence of vintage looks, and not just vintage as in thrift, but vintage as in you're seeing a lot more of like the fitted top with like the A-line skirt or like the flow skirt, the more retro-esque feel. They're seeing that as really old money and rich. Oh, you on something with that one.
You
Ooh,
know,
that's terrifying.
I don't
That's
know.
terrifying. That's terrifying. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting because I don't think Pretty Little Thing is gonna be the last company to do
No.
this. I think we're gonna definitely see more of this popping up. Um, and you mentioned something too about like the clothes that you wear, like, or choosing the type of clothes that you wear being liberating, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure that me and you both can relate to this about how, like, growing up, we weren't allowed to wear certain things and we had to be
Mhm.
covered up. And so there's a level of freedom that comes with when you are an adult and you have your own money. You can start to curate, your own look, your own aesthetic, and being able to play around with that. I would hate for that also to get lost. Cause
Mhm.
again, for me, like, I never been like a big like crop top person, but I remember the first time I bought like ripped jeans. I
Yes.
felt so free.
Ripped jeans, shorter shorts. Like everyone else have had these experiences for years. Here I
Yes.
am in the late high school, finally being able to
I was
be.
literally 23.
What? Oh man. I mean, you make a really good point. Like I feel like the that type of experience is a coming of age, especially for a young girl turning into a woman from a strict household, especially. Like having the ability to choose what you wear is like that first step to realizing you have choice. And that being taken away, I feel like that can, I don't know. There's a pro and a con, when you think about with kids, the conversations of our kids growing up too fast or they're dressing too grown. This might be able to allow kids to feel like kids a little bit longer in
Mm-hmm.
terms of they're not dressing a little bit too much older soon. Or would that eliminate this pretty important next step up in their adulthood? But that is that totally eliminating what they, because closet experimentation in high school, that's like the whole point, right? Everyone's trying to do makeup, everyone's trying to wear the latest threads and begging their parents to get the latest J's or something. All right, but does that completely get eliminated now? Like that's such a core memory in high school and college. Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. But speaking of choice in fashions, I know you wanted to talk about dress codes at work.
Yes. Okay, so y'all probably have seen the resurgence, or not the resurgence, but the uptick of conversation around office siren. And I brought this up to Bree one day, not just asking, do you think office siren is appropriate for work? Because I think we both agreed, not really, no. But it brought up the larger conversation of dress code at work, especially since it's such a professional setting. It's a setting where historically, you're coming in with slacks, with a blazer, with a blouse, with a suit, polo shirt. You have a very particular look in corporate America in particular. But now that the new generation is stepping into a spot, we're a little bit more relaxed. We like Jean Fridays and the like. We like to come in, not like t-shirts and leggings, but we're coming in, cute top, cute bottoms, something that's a little bit more comfortable or something that still brings personality. So I wanted first to get your thoughts on one, do you think that workplaces should have a dress code? And if so, what it should be? Or will it vary depending on where you're working?
Yeah. Um man, it's tough cuz part of it is what has been ingrained in us as a society, right? Like, when you have your traditional 9 to 5, like you are in your professional
Mm-hmm.
corporate attire. And I do feel that that has changed over time, and not even just with Gen Z. Like, I've seen some millennials get experimental, with their
Mm-hmm.
outfits and things. And I do think there is a way to do it in a way that's still fun but also tasteful. And
Mm-hmm.
it definitely depends on the industry. Like, cuz I'll speak for me, like now working at like a YouTube office, like we don't really have a dress code. Like the
Exactly.
dress code is like don't look inappropriate,
Mm-hmm.
but I can wear a t-shirt, I can wear this. Literally, like people were coming into the office wearing sweats when it was like 2 degrees outside. Like
Mm-hmm.
there isn't really much of a dress code. And honestly, like I mean, I think we all have our own personal like opinions and biases, but for me it's like as long as you are looking appropriate and it's not conflicting with you being able to do your job, I don't think it should be that big of a deal. But obviously, there are times where it does matter. And I have seen a
Mm-hmm.
couple of TikToks go viral in the past of some of us, some of Gen Z, going
Yeah.
to like interviews or I know there was this one where this girl had went to like a Christmas party and it's like they're wearing like super short mini skirts and it's
Oh. Oh,
yes,
not the miniskirt percent.
I've seen a lot of mini skirts popping up in the corporate field and I'm like that's probably too far
Settle
now.
down. Settle down.
Now it's one thing if you want to do a little t-shirt and blazer, but if you almost showing booty cheeks at the workplace, that,
Please.
that might not be ideal. But I don't know, it's tough because again, I'm pretty sure me and you have the same story of like growing up, like we were told blazer and
Mm-hmm.
slacks or super long dress that comes down to your knees. Like we were given
Yes.
very specific instructions on how to dress. For me, since middle school, they've been telling us this. Like this is how you wear. This is what you wear. They even used to break down like what's the difference between business and business casual.
Exactly. This is
And
formal. Yeah.
I do wonder, are they still having those conversations in school?
Oh. Yeah, I didn't get those conversations in school at all. I only had them at home. But I also think we also got a lot of those conversations through what we watched. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people grew up watching like The Office, for example, where they all looked business casual or they were wearing like suits, like nice things for presentations, right? And we all were ingrained with that thought of, okay, when I get out to the workforce, I need to go to New York and Company. You know what I mean? I need to
Mm-hmm.
get my threads together for my interview, for when I sit at my desk, for everything under the sun. But yeah, now not so much. I think I wonder what did happen from having those conversations in school, similar to teaching people how to write in cursive.
Yeah, so how to send an
You
email. Like
how to send it. Y'all can't write no emails for nothing. You know what I mean? I wish I had a little corporate lingo 101 class in high school or in college. I would have been set. But no, no, it's fine. I had to take science. But nah, I wish.
yeah. And it's crazy too because I feel like the pandemic has a little bit of influence on this because
Agreed.
when everyone had to work from home, people started wearing casual stuff. And so now the
Mm-hmm.
work environment has become less corporate because of that. And so I wonder if post pandemic people are like, oh, well, do I really need to show up in a blazer and
Mm-hmm.
slacks?
I I am the person that thinks like I work from home, y'all. So Ayana gets up and I tend to be in my robe most of the day. Or I'm wearing very even what I'm wearing right now, I'm wearing a tank top and I'm wearing a skirt. This tends to be what I wear on a day-to-day basis, and that's acceptable. And I think about my girlies who work from home. I'm thinking about my girlies who are hybrid, especially in the office. I'm thinking about switching your brain on and off from working from home attire where you're comfortable, you have a work life balance, to having to somehow turn on 9 to 5 corporate. Dressing that way, had to deal with the transportation system and everything. I'm like, that back and forth. I'm not saying it's unachievable, because for some folks, hybrid is the T. You know what I mean? But I can imagine that because of the pandemic, it shattered what we realized what work should look like now. Now it's like, well, shoot, as long as I'm getting my work done, does it truly matter? What, like as long as I'm coming in covered and presentable, does it really matter what I'm wearing right now? As long as my tasks are completed. And in reality, probably not. Now, if you're in like finance, if you're in the stock market, like there's certain roles where you'd probably expect to be wearing your suits and your ties still, right? But you're talking to your local marketing girlies right now, right? And we're in such a field of color and creativity and expression that you end up seeing a lot of us dress in that exact type of way that matches our feel.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
it's interesting too because it was ingrained in us to again show up in a blazer and all of that. I noticed that when I was doing my interviews for certain companies over Zoom, I was always overdressed.
Same every time. Mm-hmm.
The people interviewing me, and again, like I've interviewed with like a plethora of different companies across different niches. Almost all of them, I kid you not, were in a t-shirt or a half zip or a sweatshirt. Like, I don't like I think I would even go as far as to say that none of the people that I've ever interviewed with had a blazer on.
None, actually. Mm-mm.
I was
Like,
always severely overdressed.
mm-hmm. I'll never forget. I was interviewing for an internship in college. It was like my senior year or something. And when the girl turned on her camera, I have my blouse on. You know what I mean? I might have on a cardigan, but I have on my blouse. I have on very small jewelry. I'm coming ready and presentable in my dorm room. Sis turned on the camera, had on her bathrobe. I said, "Oh, word, I'm so overdressed. If I knew I could have came in a tank top real quick, you know what I mean, and a sleeveless tee, I would have been chilling. But no." But I realized that the folks who were dressing like that also came with probably the coolest, the chillest demeanor. Is that what I'm trying to say? Demeanor. That's what I'm
Yes,
trying to say.
demeanor.
Okay, listen, words, right? And I'm like, I feel like there's some type of correlation between right now how folks dress for work to how you can expect for them to act, or like just who they are as people as well. And I think, even when I think farther back in the day, you had the conversations of your stereotypical coffee shop worker,
Mm-hmm.
right? You had that very particular look of someone who's like, oh, you look like you work in a coffee shop. They look not lax, but like they look put together, they look presentable, but they don't look corporate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that type of look is what we're seeing a lot more now with the younger generations, or as since the pandemic now, as the shift has happened, of just being just we're nice, we look nice, we feel nice, we are nice. It's normally 9 in the morning. Yes, we want to look nice, but also be comfy, instead of having to be so strict, not just with clothing, but how work is in general. I think work itself has become less strict.
But yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, because again, like the people that show up typically in their t-shirts and their half zips, they are like the coolest people. And honestly, I think most people probably wouldn't make that big of a deal about what people are wearing, but you do have the few bad apples that spoil the bunch. And so the people that tend to show up to work or to show up to an interview dressed inappropriately, they typically aren't coming into those spaces with the like with the level of professionalism that they probably should be entering those spaces into. And so, I think it's just all a balance.
Mm-hmm.
So, last topic I wanted to get into.
Oh boy.
We are seeing a lot of our favorite stores closing.
Yeah.
We've been seeing Joann's Fabrics going out of business.
I'm bitter
Forever
about it, yo.
Forever 21 just announced that they filed for bankruptcy. You also have Big Lots
Mm.
and Party City.
Mm-hmm.
And so, first, what were your initial thoughts when you saw Joann's Fabrics versus Forever 21? Because I feel like it was two completely different like responses. Because like with Joann's Fabrics, it was like, oh man, like where am I gonna get my arts and crafts? Like I grew up off of Joann's Fabrics. Whereas Forever 21, people are like, well, maybe if y'all stop selling Taco Tuesday T-shirts, y'all went out of business.
Okay, I definitely land on both of those sentiments. So Joann's, y'all, I used to sew a lot as a kid. Well, I used to sew a bit as a kid, and I definitely grew up very creative. And Joann's, Hancock Fabrics, Michaels, those are my spots. Getting fabric, getting art supplies, and hearing that Joann's is being taken away. Little Ayana was very sad for a while. Little Ayana still is hurt by that. Um, because I think this is one of those locations that creatives were able to all come together under one love of just making things and get supplies that were frankly relatively affordable, to be honest, or at least they were nice quality too. And you can network, you can meet new people, you can have classes like this. This is a community thing that I feel like is gone now, and that makes me very, very sad. Forever 21. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I was never much of a Forever 21 fan, even though I have the one pair of sweats, because I know you're gonna mention it. One pair of sweats and the one pair of pants I got that were cute.
And that silk tank top.
And the silk tank top. I do like that silk tank top. I was never a huge Forever 21 fan, except till Bree took me to one day, and I was like, okay, fine, I found something. For the similar sentiment of what was in there, but also younger Ayana wasn't allowed to shop in Forever 21. So I couldn't touch it until I got to maybe college. And by that point, I felt like I aged out of Forever 21, even though I was 21. So I was probably the age to be going in that store. I only remember high schoolers being in there. And I was like, that's not really what I want to be looking like. I'm also relatively tall, so I feel like I can't wear many of the pants without them being too short, right? So I don't know. I think I definitely was feeling less about Forever 21 being taken away. I do kind of wonder though, we're seeing a lot of spots that in a sense kind of cater to kids in a way, kids and teens. Whether it's Party City, having little parties for your kids, or even just a community event, right?
Mm-hmm.
To Joann's Fabrics, another community thing. Forever 21, that's for a younger demographic. Like, I'm realizing the stores that are closing are also things that were targeted to young folk and for community. And I think overall, that's a little troubling for me. They're being bought up and overtaken by the likes of an Amazon or a Walmart. And now you can find all their stuff in there instead. So, yeah, that's my initial thoughts.
Yeah. So I
Shambles.
I am in the minority of being sad at Forever 21 closing. I do agree though that their core demographic is probably teens. And I think that's why I was saddened by it, because I feel like a lot of teens and a lot of preteens, they don't have a lot of options.
Agreed.
In
Heavily
the way
agreed.
that we did. And seeing some of these high schoolers in Fashion Nova, like,
that was
no. Like, what? Y'all need to be in a Forever 21. But I also understand the sentiment of, like, because we were the ones that really shopped there and grew up off of Forever 21, they should have grew up with their audience, and they didn't. But I still think there's a place for the Taco Tuesday graphics, because these teenagers need something to wear. So I don't know.
I wonder.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wonder if folks are starting to see this type of stuff as corny. I just thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people have said that a lot of their stuff is just corny.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of Disney.
But see, because I like that stuff. But I understand that most people in their 20s don't. So yeah, I don't know. It's sad seeing these stores close, but then not seeing something take its place. Because you're removing these things, but then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, what's left? Fashion
Mm-hmm.
Hall.
What's next? What now? Mm-hmm.
So I really feel for these kids. Like, I would hate for Claire's to shut
If
down.
Claire's goes, I'ma crash out. Don't take Claire's away, please.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's interesting too, because you said that, by the time you were 21, Forever 21 didn't really speak to
Mm-hmm.
your style. And yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, Forever 21 wasn't really for 21-year-olds. It was for,
No,
I feel like it was for teenagers that wanted to look 21.
exactly. By the time we were 21, we were like, this ain't actually in it anymore.
Yeah. So,
I am realizing now though, like I I transitioned from high school to college, shopping more at like H&M for a while. And I'm realizing that with people taking away like Forever 21, you're gonna see them now shop more at an H&M, at an Express. That these stores aren't bad. I loved these stores when I was in high school as well, but they are definitely leaning more modestly.
mhm.
Their capsule collections typically, especially H&M, are based off of either a certain color or a certain color gradient. And especially when it was winter, it was very one toned with the shades of brown and the grays, right? I feel like kids are going to look, this is gonna be such a weird way to put it. I think kids are going to look older not because they're covered up, but because they lose that expression. They lose the Taco Tuesday. They lose the bedazzled and the rhinestones and all that stuff. They look like adults now. And I think that does say a lot to where we're heading now in terms of how they're starting to on how kids are being viewed by, I think, the administration in terms of where they fit. And I think that's really unfortunate. I think kids are no longer going to be able to be kids anymore.
Yeah.
That's like what, or sorry, I'll take it back. Kids are going to be able to be kids if they're in a privileged household
Yeah.
and they can be homeschooled. And everyone doesn't have access to that,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, it's tough because, like, I know we've been having these conversations for a minute now about, can kids truly be kids anymore? Like, I know that conversation first popped up when, like, Sexy Red started to become popular and kids were singing or rapping
Mm-hmm.
her songs. People were like, okay, who is this generation's, like, Hannah Montana and Jonas Brothers? Like,
Exactly.
they don't really have that. And now we're seeing it with, fashions. Like, even though, like, technically Aeropostale and Hollister are still open, but no one is really shopping there anymore. And
Yeah, I was like, they're.
it's not relevant or trendy in the way that it was for us. We're like, oh no, I gotta get Hollister, I gotta get Aeropostale. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really do feel for kids nowadays, because even seeing some of these first day of high school outfits, I'm like, man, I wouldn't have been able to make it. Like, they are
Mm-mm.
showing up with Gucci book bags and 30-inch bundles and a
Mm-hmm.
full face of makeup on the first day of high school. I I don't know. And again, this definitely won't be the last that we're gonna see of this. Like, there's definitely probably gonna be more of these closings. Maybe, like, because I know people have been talking about, like, stores like Amazon or companies like Amazon, like, they're really the ones that are causing a lot of these stores to close, because people aren't finding the need to go in person to buy anything anymore. People are just ordering stuff
Mm-hmm.
online. However, we are in the midst of boycotts and people reconsidering where they spend their dollar. And so I'm curious how that's going to play a factor. And
Mm-hmm.
if we somehow see a decline in Amazon purchases, will that maybe save retail stores?
So I've also been thinking about this one too. I think Amazon, we similar to social media, we've become addicted to it because we've become addicted to the convenience that Amazon provides, especially with Prime. Your girl, that's
Guilty.
a prime. The Prime is an addiction.
I got a package coming tomorrow. Again, I'm apologies.
You are, you know what I'm saying? Like, Prime is an addiction, and I think we will see a decline in purchases, but it's going to speak volumes once you see people stop using Prime. And that is going that could lead to some pretty interesting things, I think. But will it lead to retail stores coming back? Surprisingly, I don't think so. I think that because we're in such digital era, I think they're going to reinvent how we shop more than just it being just a click away on a computer. I feel like people are going to miss walking around malls, but they're not going to miss the crowds. They're not going to miss people. They're going to miss the aesthetic. You know, I think that'll lead us back into the what are those, like the Oculus, I believe it is, where you could put on the
Oh,
headset and you have the virtual reality.
yeah, like VR. Yeah.
VR, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not surprised if we're going to see that implemented so then you can feel like you're walking through a
Fuck,
mall,
that's gonna be
which that's
so
dystopian.
weird.
You know what I mean? Or the more hopeful side I have is that this will force people to look more at small businesses and to be more conscious buyers and to look deeper into what they're purchasing. You know, I think if we're going to stick to it being more online and we want to boycott, great, there are plenty of online businesses that can be for your kids, that can be for your teens, that can be for your girly who shouldn't be wearing off his siren, but who can still come a little more lax. Like, there are clothing pieces for everyone, little and everything else. But we have to let go of the convenience of it being just so easily accessible to us and have to put in the a little bit more work to go search, to go find, to go ask, to go look through more. So I hope that's at least what it puts people to do.
Yeah, for sure. Man, it's crazy. Like there's just so
Mm-hmm.
much stuff happening. We're literally only in the first quarter of the year.
It's not the end of Q1 yet.
We're not even in April yet. And there is
Oh, I'm
so much
tired.
going on now with fashion and all these stores and just overall like just the conversations that are happening around consumerism with all of these. It's just really interesting. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you guys subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Spotify. I did get a few DMs about Apple Podcasts, so I'm going to look into getting us on Apple as well, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.